Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to the RV Living Show. If you're joining us for the first time, we're Bryan Luann Street, where the streets wander. And today we're going to be asking the question: is downsizing giving you a problem?
Yeah, a lot of people dread downsizing when they start considering a full-time RV life. And so we wanted to talk about that today in this episode of the RV Living Show. So if you'll just stay tuned with us, we will get started on that. The RV life. We're surrounded with the message that it's a life you have to wait until retirement to have, and a life that only some can afford. And while it might be reality for those who want to believe that's true, we're on a mission to change that mindset and help people to stop wondering and start wandering to create a life they love.
Join us in conversations about how to design your RV life. We're Bryan Luann Street, and this is the RV Living Show.
Okay, guys, we're ready to get started with you here today. We are so excited that you've joined us. For those of you who are here with us live, pop in the comments and say hello. And also, if you have any questions about downsizing, you can certainly put them there. And at the end of the episode, we will address them and chat with you about them. So we recently shared in 2 recent episodes about how to identify what's holding you back. There's a lot of things you may want to transition to full-time. You may want to have a full-time RV life, but there are obstacles in your way.
Absolutely. Things do crop up, even things sometimes you don't even expect.
Right. So in one of the episodes 2 weeks ago, we did how to identify that. Sometimes that what you think it is not really what's holding you back. And you have to kind of dive deep into the things that you think are holding you back and really make sure that that's what you're dealing with. And then last week we chatted all about leaving your friends and family, and that can be a real hindrance to people not wanting to leave their friends and family.
It absolutely can. I mean, if you're close to your family, especially, and you got a lot of family around you, it can be a difficult time. I mean,
it is. But then you have this desire to full time, and what do you do with that? So this week, we're going to talk all about downsizing. Downsizing is a big hurdle.
It is definitely a big hurdle. It's something that when we actually started in our own life, I didn't think it would be terrible. I really thought we could kind of go through it quick, but quickly learned it was quite a chore.
Well, the thing that you don't expect is that it pops up such emotional things that happen when you start dealing with your stuff. And that is what stops people in their tracks, is that emotional side, because you're going to find things you haven't seen in years when you start to downsize. So we're going to go through a few tips today that may help you get started in that process. Inside our Trading Stuff from Memories downsizing course, we teach a quick remedy to downsizing, but what we're talking about today is for you to possibly just start looking at your house in a different way, and you could start certain tasks now depending on when your freedom date is. So the first thing here's our title. I forgot to display that. Solutions to Downsizing Overwhelm, because it can be completely overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming. It sure can.
So our first tip is to start with items that you're not attached to, because as I just said, it starts to get those emotions going when you pick up your stuff, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this is one thing that we didn't learn right up front.
Well, you don't think about that.
You don't think about this up front, because I remember going through so many, like my one room that I was really going to be more focused on was my garage. And
yeah, his one room.
My room, but it was actually
I had the rest of the house. No.
Anyway, here we go to this garage, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that actually needed to be cleaned out and thrown away. It wasn't a problem. But you find that little box in the corner that has all those special tools or special things in it you've kind of forgot about. And I remember pulling these things out and looking at everything and thinking, all of a sudden I realized, I've wasted a half an hour looking at something that could have been done, later on.
Yeah, or just made a decision.
Or made a decision on it. And that's where it comes down to. You really got to touch it once and get rid of it.
Right.
Or make that decision.
Yes. So, and he talks about his one room, right? So our next tip is to tackle one room at a time. So I sent him to the garage.
She didn't want to go out there. Okay.
No, I didn't. And that was where all his stuff was that I had no idea what to keep and what to get rid of. So I think it was a fair trade. But so the next tip is to, tackle one room at a time. And then that way, if you don't look at your whole house as, you may have a large house, 3,000 plus square feet or even 2,000 plus square feet. It's when you think of it as a whole, it's kind of overwhelming. You're like, I have to go through all this stuff because every nook and cranny may have something. But if you focus on one room at a time, you could even start doing this now. Depending on how far in the future your freedom date is, right. You could be doing one room a quarter where you're going through your drawers and you're going through the cabinets and through underneath the bed. You could take your piece by piece of your room, right. And start doing your cleaning out and decluttering, because if you're going to full-time later instead of like in 6 months, you don't want to live in an empty house. You don't want to get rid of too much, but it certainly would, make things easier if you were to like start really decluttering with that vision of that you're going to be going full-time at some point here in the next year or two.
Yeah, I just want to point out, a lot of stuff in there we find in our house is that we're really not attached to.
Right, which goes back to the first one.
It goes back to the first one. Go ahead and make the decision. Get that stuff out of there. Get it out of your way. That's less to think about when the real time comes to start the process. Because like you said, you don't want to live in an empty house. But if there's a lot of things that's you can go ahead and find a home for and get rid of, now's the time to start.
Well, I'm sure right now, if you walked into a room, you could identify 5 things right away that you haven't touched or did anything with in the last 6 months. I mean, I could do that. And we had just moved. We had sold our house and moved into another house. So we had decluttered and kind of consolidated to move into the new place. And yet I could walk in that room and go, oh, yeah, I haven't done anything with that in the last 6 months. And so those are the types of things you want to think about when you're going into the room. And we're not telling you just give it away or throw it away. You could, if it's valuable or has value, you could certainly put it on Facebook Marketplace or do any of those things and start selling off and, kind of fill your RV savings coffers.
That's right. These things you want to sell, now's the time to go ahead and start thinking about selling them because you can take your time. You can maybe get a better price for it if you go ahead and start early.
Start early, because if it doesn't sell right away, you can always post it again. That's right. So that's, there's 2 ways of looking at downsizing. Sometimes it's really great to rip the Band-Aid off and say, oh, I'm just going to get this done and get it over with and go through the process. And then other ways, if you are taking your time, you could benefit from doing that. But also, you can also take too long and then lose momentum.
Right. I mean, if you take too long, then it's just stretching out the pain.
Yes, because you know what? It is pain. All this stuff that you have accumulated over your life, you're emotionally attached to it. You spent your hard-earned money on, and now you're getting rid of it. And you're like, but why am I doing this? And that's actually why I named our downsizing course Trading Stuff for Memories, because that's what you're doing.
It is.
And it's not an easy task physically, and it's not necessarily an easy task emotionally. So we hope these tips will help you today. So the next tip that is coming up could really change how you approach downsizing. And we're going to give that to you after you hear a word from our sponsor.
This episode of the RV Living Show is brought to you by the Full-Time RV Framework, a 6-month journey to creating a full-time RV life.
This program includes a 4-module 26-lesson video course, a bi-weekly freedom call on Zoom and group mentoring in a private community, downsized RV living course so you can learn to downsize with ease, the RV Your New Home blueprints so you can learn about your new home and how to use it, the Roadmap to RV Living Planner where you can plan your transition, full-time RV maintenance and budgeting, and a Make Money on the Road resource guide. everything in one place so you can stop wondering and start wandering.
Learn more about enrolling in this complete solution for transitioning to the full-time RV life at fulltimervframework.com.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you that next week on the RV Living Show, before I give you the next tip, is we are doing a transition to RV Living Show-and-R. So it's kind of like a condensed workshop. And actually, if you know about our full-time RV workshop that we do once in a while, this is a condensed version that we're going to be doing. And it's going to be next week instead of the RV Living Show. We're going to be doing the Show-and-R. It has training about full-timing, and you can actually register and get the workbook right here at this URL, streetswander.com/pillar-show-and-R registration. And so we wanted to give you that opportunity today, that if you missed that workshop and you want to get more information on full timing, this is the place to do it. It's also posted above this video.
We go through a lot of great information on there, so it's something really you want to check out.
So the next tip is to not let indecision slow you down. And we kind of already talked about this just a little bit when Bryan talked about, getting into stuff. And, with those memories that are triggered when you're downsizing, it does, all of a sudden you can't decide what to do with it. And so then you get decision paralysis. You're like, what do I do with it? Do I sell it? Do I keep it? Will I ever need it? All those, oh, well, Aunt Susie gave this to me for my wedding. I can't get rid of this. And when you're going through your stuff, the indecision is actually your enemy, because the longer you hold on to it, the chances are it's not what's going into your RV. So let's just say that right away.
Yeah.
Because we only have so much space.
So much space.
So, and you have to make that decision. And if you're going to store it, what does that mean for storing it? Like, does it just mean you're going to have to touch it again later? Because if that's just delaying the inevitable.
Right. Plus, if you have to store it, you got to really make sure, is it worth the price to store?
Yeah. Because I personally have a family member that pays on the up. It's probably close to $1,000 a month for his storage units. And I can tell you right now that the stuff that's inside them is not worth what he pays for that. But he can't let go. And that's the hard part. So you have to work through this indecision. So one of the tips that I like to give is that when you come to an item, and we're going to apply this to the items, and I call them sentimental items. And I don't know if you guys are newsletter subscribers yet, but in this week's newsletter, I actually talked about my mother's nativity set. And as I was downsizing, I came across her nativity set, and it brought back childhood memories of what I did with my mom, putting it up every Christmas, how important it was to her, how important it was to me as a child. And it's a family heirloom at this point. And I wasn't going to throw that away. I wasn't going to give that away. I wasn't going to sell it. And so during that process, I had to decide that I couldn't keep moving forward with my downsizing if I took a minute to open it up and look at it and do all the memory stuff. So part of this tip includes, if you get something that is triggering you to walk down memory lane and it's something sentimental and you can't make an immediate decision on well, I'm going to give this to my daughter. Someone else in the family is going to love this, or it just doesn't matter to me anymore. You can make a decision. If it's holding you, and I kind of use the word hostage because you can't get past it, put it aside and come back to it on a day where you're going to process all your sentimental things at the same time. And that could be after you make better, longer decisions, like better, like your decision muscles are better in tune because you've made a bunch of them.
So many things could be holding you back, like, if you're attached to books or whatever it may be, you've seen this book that you pulled off your shelf that you haven't seen in a while, you start thinking about this book that you want to read. So there's so many different things, and if you learn to, just like she said, just put these things aside and say, I can't deal with that now, I'll talk about it and do it later.
Yeah, you just have to be careful that everything can't be a sentimental item. You have to let some stuff go. So
yes, you do.
So I promised everyone who read the newsletter that I was going to tell them what I did with my nativity set, and it really isn't all that shocking, but I have 2 daughters and a son, and I went to each of them and I asked them if they wanted the nativity set because it was their grandmother. And so my oldest daughter was like, yes, she was going to definitely take that. We ended up putting it in storage for her because her children are very young yet, and we didn't want them to break it. But those are the types of things that you're going to be going through as you transition.
Right.
So I hope those tips have helped you today, because it really is something that you have to work through. And you also have to know that you desire that full-time lifestyle more than you desire to keep all of your things. And I'm not saying you have to get rid of everything.
No, you don't. But like you said about the desire of the full-time lifestyle, we know when you go into this that this is your goal. It makes it, if you keep your goal in front of you, you can work through this.
Exactly. Exactly. And that, I think that's the not getting, put the blinders on. What do you really want? And how are you going to get there? And to not let these things, I was looking around to something to show you, but not let these things keep you from, living your dream. Because they are things. I mean, let's put everything into real perspective. If you have something so much that you can't let go, then you're either going to pay for it to be in storage. And then when you start thinking about that, like Bryan said, the cost of the storage.
That's right.
The only thing that I feel, and you could have a completely different opinion, that I feel a storage unit is worth having is for things that you could never, ever, ever replace. It's not the place for your furniture. It's not the place for your tools, which that's a whole nother subject. It's the place for those sentimental things that are going to be family heirlooms that need to go to some family member that you're going to pass down. And that's what you need to put in a storage unit, because first of all, storage units, unless you pay for climate controlled, aren't healthy for items, right? They're just, if you store a bunch of stuff in one that gets hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold, your stuff's going to deteriorate over time. Bugs are going to get in there, whatever. I mean, it's all, that's the type of thing you have to think about when you're going to go store something. So
that's right. Absolutely. And you just got to think of what you're going to put in there. But I will say this, after we've been on the road, there's not one thing, there's nothing that we've got rid of that I say, I wish I still had that.
Right.
Nothing. Everything is like, we're just so glad we did it. We made the change. We made all the hard decisions, and it's we don't regret it.
We don't regret it. And the good news is that for anything that isn't completely sentimental, it's replaceable, right? So there are Walmarts everywhere you travel. There are stores. There's Amazon. You can, if you got rid of something that one day you needed, you can get it again. And so that's the kind of mentality that you really need to work on having. So we are so glad you joined us today. And we did tell you about next week, the Transitions to RV Living Show-and-R that's coming up. And we hope that you'll click the link, download the workbook, and come back here, same time, same place. And we will dive into some more full-timing goodness. So we're going to dive into the comments right now and talk to everybody who's here with us live. So Tammy says, hello, first time watching a live event. Awesome, Tammy. Thank you for joining us. And Joanne says, good morning from California. Yay. Liz Johnson says she just tuned in. Chris Edwards said she's watching. And Chris says she loves my haircut. Thank you. Yeah, it was pretty dramatic. As I was watching, we have that intro on the video, and as I was watching, I was like, oh yeah, my hair doesn't look like that anymore. So Leslie says, yes, love the hair. Thank you. Thank you. Leslie says she's getting ready to go through downsizing in the next few weeks, and I have analysis paralysis, and I can't seem to get started. It's hard.
It is.
It's hard because, and again, you have to go back to that decision. Why are you doing this in the first place? Why do you want to full-time? What are you trading your stuff for? And if you have to build your dream a little bit bigger so that you can do it, then that's what you need to do. And so I feel for you, Leslie. I really do. And Joanne says photo albums, pictures, so hard to decide. Yeah. So my solution was I had photo albums, and I was a scrapbooker. And so I did creative memories. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, but I have all these 12 by 12 albums, and Phil's a books. You can't even see my hands on the screen. Phil's this whole bookshelf, and they're the only pictures we have of our children, because back in the 80s when we got married and started raising our children, you had the little 110 cameras and you got your film developed, and that was it.
That's how you did it.
But now in this digital age, it's so much easier to have your pictures. And so what I did is I actually took the photo albums and the pages, and I scanned them in so that I would have them digitally. I do still have the photo albums because one of my daughters is going to take them. I'm actually thinking of taking the scanned pages and turning them into one of those, what you might call like a storybook. They have them. I really like forever.com, and I became a consultant for them just because I buy so much of their stuff. So if you want to go on forever.com, you can look at their scanning. You can send your stuff to them to scan. It's really a great program, and they'll produce a book for you. And so that's a really good way of doing that. And Joanne says she did creative memories too for years. Yes, I know. And you're like, and you know what? And I was just talking to Bryan this the other day, because as I'm thinking about scanning in these pages and making these photo books, I was like, but what about all the money that I spent on those page protectors and the pages and the stickers and the paper? And he's just looking at me like, I don't know how to help you, but it's real. The struggle is real. But the lifestyle that you're embarking on is so awesome, and you won't regret it. And you just have to readjust your mindset. And so we would love to, chat some more about this, because it's hard. And if you're in the Stop Wondering and Start RVing Facebook group, you can, go in there and I can cheer you on as you're downsizing. But we had a bunch of people just go through our full-time RV framework, and it was one of the guys that actually had a much harder time getting rid of his stuff than his wife did. He was attached to more different, his collections and different things. And so that was, we were able to help them do that and get through that process, because you really do need a pep talk every once in a while.
You do. And when I started going through downsizing stuff, I thought it would be easy, but it really wasn't very easy. It was a tough job.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yes. And physically it's hard too, for sure. Oh, Joanne says, please don't tell my husband how much money was spent on creative memories. Shh, your secret's safe with me. He doesn't even really know how much it was. So.
I could only imagine.
But you know what? He spent money on tools, and this was our family history. So that's how I rationalize that. Tammy says, how long have you been working on your website? Awesome job. Tammy, we have had our website for about 4 years. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And Liz says, annually, we review 1 year, 2 year, and 5 year dreams, hopes, plans, and goals. Where do you see yourselves in 5 years? What happens when you're done full-timing? Well, we went into this thinking about that we didn't want to go back to a sticks and bricks house. Of course, age and health could derail that. And we know that. But right now, we're really focused on doing it for as long as we can. We do know that there's an 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐳 long-term care park, believe it or not, in Livingston, Texas, that if we're still in our RV and we need help, we can go there, and RV there. We've also considered getting an RV lot in a place that has somewhere where you could put like a tiny home next to it, or a cabin or something, so that we would have a more permanent residence and still have the RV. There's just lots of different things.
A lot of options.
And so that we don't have an exit plan necessarily, but because we really don't. I mean, none of us know what happens tomorrow. We're not promised tomorrow. We don't know what changes happen, and it's hard to plan that far in advance because we're still pre-retirement. We're not retired. So those are the types of things that we think about and talk about doing.
Yeah, as we've traveled, we've seen a couple places around the country, and now we realize that there's so much more to see and do that we're not sure exactly where we'll eventually end up.
Yeah, and some of our children have talked about possibly getting a couple acres out somewhere, and then we would probably put a tiny house on that with an RV pad. So, I mean, that's just kind of where we're at with that. So I hope that helped. All right, guys. Well, we'll hope to see you next week on the Transition to RV Living Showenar, and we will just catch you all then, 2 o'clock Eastern time, right here on Facebook.
All right, we'll see you
or
then.
YouTube if you're watching.
Take care.
We will see you then.
Thank you for joining us for the RV Living Show. We hope this episode helps you in creating an RV life you love.
Until next time, we encourage you to stop wandering and start wanting.